As former House Speaker and good friend of mine, Kevin McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy, good to see you on the show. We appreciate it. I want to talk to you about this. You know, you have brought, I think for the last 8 years, freshman members of Congress over to Israel to get a look at Israel, the conversation about a two-state solution, how close everything is. How important is it that members of Congress understand the region on the trips that you took them on?
I think it's very important. We're scheduled to go later this month even. And I'll tell you this, Sean, that kibbutz that those young babies were beheaded in, we were all there last February in 22, the members. So they could see Gaza right there. They could go to the soccer field where they have the bomb shelters for the kids to hide under when the rockets come. Then we'll go over to the Iron Dome. What people don't quite understand, they're the Israeli army, and they're very young, probably 24, 25 years old, and they're in control of this Iron Dome that really only has about 20 missiles in it at a time. And once a missile shoots up, it calculates where that's going to go. If it's going to fall into the field or the ocean, they let the rocket go. But if it's going to harm people, they have to make that split decision, shoot the rocket up to explode it into the air. And what Hamas is doing right now with sending thousands of rockets, they're trying to overwhelm the Iron Dome. And what I will tell you is those first rockets are pretty much dumb rockets because they're holding back the precision ones to see if they could wear out the Iron Dome. That is why America needs to act. That's why Congress has to act to make sure they have all the weaponry they need to defend themselves and the medical supplies. But the one thing we all know, if you've served the time there, you've gone through Israel, you know how close Lebanon is, you know where Gaza is and what's happening there. You know where Syria is too. So you can't have a two-front war, and it's all based around Iran. And the real challenge here, Sean, which you know so well through your financial services, Iran has become financially stronger under this Biden administration. The foreign exchange, they now have $70 billion instead of $4 billion because the Bidens will not hold the sanctions against Iran's oil. They went from producing 400,000 barrels under Trump to now 3 million barrels a day. And that's providing them billions of dollars to fund these terrorist organizations.
Congressman, we'll get to the House Speaker race in just a moment. We want to get your take on that. But while we're on the topic of Israel and you bring up this administration and the president, his interview last night with 60 Minutes, he's talking about a two-state solution as being the only answer. He talked about Iran, and he said there's still no evidence to link them to these attacks. You know, you think about the commander-in-chief setting the tone for the rest of the country. I don't hear any outrage about 30 people dead. I don't hear any outrage about the hostages right now that have been detained and are still missing. It's very chaotic getting Americans back to this country. And I'm not really hearing from him. I stand with Israel, but I don't really know what that means when it comes to President Biden.
I can't believe President Biden would say that there's no evidence that ran. He should read the Wall Street Journal. And if that's his position, then what is the evidence of that Iran has done after the attack has taken place? Celebrated it, sending their foreign minister to Qatar to meet with the head of Hamas sitting in a five-star hotel, and celebrating and encouraging Hezbollah to open up a new front up in the north from Israel. So if he truly believes Iran is not involved, then tell me this. How could you plan something this large? Who funds it? And how could they ever go about and do it without the approval of Iran? We all know that Iran has been involved. He doesn't want to acknowledge the $6 billion or the $60 billion he's provided by not enforcing the sanctions like President Trump did. But the real challenge here is that was the same reason that he believes our border is secure. What about the Iranians we're catching coming across our border down in Texas in just the last few days? That's a concern I have. What type of cells do we have in America now as well? And
I think there's bold-faced, flat-out lies. We know the truth is something different, and that's why so many Americans don't trust this president any longer. But as Jackie mentioned, I do want to pivot to this. Mr. Former Speaker, the House is still without a speaker at the president, and the Republican conference has the nominee as Jim Jordan, and he faces an uphill battle for the votes needed to claim the gavel. The conference is set to meet within an hour in an attempt to sort it all out. Apparently, Jim Jordan is 10 to 20 GOP members short to get the gavel. And so you're the guy that is the most popular in the Republican conference. You'd get the most votes out of anybody. You've raised the most money out of every member in the Republican conference. And no one has run races, as many races as you have. You ran for whip and won. You ran for leader and won. You ran for speaker and won. So you're kind of the expert on how do you win a conference that's not quite there yet. So what does Jim Jordan have to do if he's going to win the speakership between now and tomorrow's vote?
Look, I think Jim is doing exactly what he needs to do. He's sitting down individually, one-on-one, with members that have concern. And I believe, my prediction is Jim will win this, and even on the first round of votes. But you got to understand, why do we have this chaos? Is because Matt Gaetz and 7 other Republicans joined with every single Democrat to take out the Republican speaker. Can you imagine that, Sean? No. Joining with every single Democrat to try to take out the speaker, and created this chaos, simply for the fact that I believe to this day, and I will go down and believe it's the right decision, our troops are sitting in the Mediterranean right now. Their family just got paid. And could you imagine if we followed Matt Gaetz and not made sure that our troops were being paid, that we're asking them to defend this country while they're wondering if their loved ones are going to be able to pay the car payment or pay their rent or their house payment? I thought that was wrong, but that's the direction Matt Gaetz wanted to take us. So he joined all the Democrats to bring us this chaos with no plan in place. And I'm telling you, it harms us, as you know, Sean, having won a seat that a Democrat had, having helped us win the majority, and how tough it is to. And think of this. Matt Gaetz provides the same amount of money to the NRCC, our political arm, that Nancy Pelosi provides. Zero. This is a real challenge. So he worked with Nancy Pelosi to take out the speaker, and he provides the same amount of resources to make sure whether we win or lose a majority. That's what makes it challenging, but I believe Jim Jordan can bring us together and help lead this party.
We need that now.
I just made one point on that, Mr. Speaker. I'm all about cutting spending. I know you are too. But you couldn't get a bill to pass. You had people in your conference that wouldn't join you. And so you pulled a rabbit out of the hat, and you're able to extend funding for 45 days. I'm all about, if you're going to have a shutdown, you got to have a bill that you could say, hey, this is our idea of how we fund the government. You didn't have that because the conference wouldn't join you. And so you did an extension. And for that, again, that rabbit pulling, magician's act, you got Matt Gaetz coming after you, which was bizarre to me. I do hope that you stick around. You're an important voice, and Jim Jordan if he wins, is going to need your expertise. I know there's probably a poll to want to leave, but I do hope you stick, because America needs you right now, Mr. McCarthy, and but California can do without you for a little bit.
Thank you, Sean. But you're right. We had put in a stopgap measure that would cut spending, but more importantly, secure our border to protect us from these Iranians and these people on the terrorist watch list coming across our border. But Matt Gaetz and others voted against that, then challenged me for keeping our government open and paying our troops. But you know what? It was the right thing to do, and I'll continue to do the right thing each and every time for the American people.
Kevin McCarthy, the Houdini of the House. Thank you for joining us on The Bottom Line. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.